Midnight encounter at the abandoned station. You won't believe what happened to me one fateful night when I had to gas up my car after a long shift as a call center agent. I promise, this is a real story that'll send shivers down your spine. So, it was a typical night, and I had just wrapped up my shift. Exhausted, I climbed into my car and checked the fuel gauge. It was dangerously low, and the gas station was my only lifeline. The clock struck midnight as I embarked on a drive that would forever be etched in my memory. I navigated through the deserted streets, my headlights cutting through the darkness like a lifeline. The city lights grew dimmer as I found myself on a desolate stretch of road. That's when I spotted it, a lone gas station standing eerily against the night, pulling in. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The gas station appeared ancient, as if frozen in time. The flickering fluorescent lights did little to dispel the shadows that danced around the pumps. As I stepped out of my car, a cold wind swept through, sending a shiver down my spine. I grabbed the nozzle and began pumping gas, my eyes darting around nervously. That's when I heard it, a faint whisper, like a voice carried by the wind. I dismissed it as my imagination, but the whisper persisted, growing more distinct with each passing second. My heart raced as I looked around, trying to pinpoint the source of the sound. Then I saw her, a figure standing at the edge of the station, cloaked in darkness. My blood ran cold as I realized she was staring right at me. Her eyes glinted in the dim light, and a sense of unease settled over me. I mustered the courage to call out, "Hey, are you okay?" No response. My voice seemed to vanish into the night. I could feel my pulse quicken as the figure took a step closer, her gaze never leaving mine. She seemed to be whispering something, her lips moving frantically. Yet I couldn't make out the words. Panic set in, and I fumbled to finish gassing up my car. My hands trembled as I jumped back into the driver's seat and slammed the door shut. As I sped away from the gas station, I stole one last glance in the rearview mirror. What I saw sent a chill down my spine. The figure was no longer at the station. She was standing right by my car, face inches from the glass. Her eyes held a haunting emptiness as she continued to whisper, her voice growing louder, almost desperate. I pushed the gas pedal harder, my heart pounding in my chest. The image of that figure, her ghostly appearance and the eerie whispers, were forever etched into my mind. To this day, I can't shake the feeling that I encountered something supernatural that night, something that defied explanation. Trust me, if you ever find yourself in a similar situation, keep your wits about you. You never know what might be lurking in the shadows. The sinister stranger at the midnight gas stop. This happened a few years ago, and I still get shivers thinking about it. It was a late summer night, and I was driving back from a road trip with a friend. We were on a long stretch of highway, surrounded by darkness and the hum of the engine. The fuel gauge dipped dangerously low, and our cell phones were almost out of battery. A perfect recipe for a horror movie scenario. We finally spotted a gas station in the distance, a solitary oasis of light in the night. Relieved, we pulled in, the tires crunching on the gravel as we came to a stop. The station seemed normal enough, a few flickering lights, a dimly lit store, and an eerie quietness that hung in the air. As I stepped out of the car and approached the pumps, I noticed a figure standing by one of the pumps, staring off into the distance. My friend joined me, and we exchanged uneasy glances. The figure was tall, dressed in tattered clothes, and his face was hidden beneath the shadow of a worn-out hat. We dismissed our unease and focused on the task at hand, fueling up the car. The pump clicked steadily, the only sound in the silence. That's when the figure turned and fixed his gaze on us. His eyes were intense, almost piercing, and he started walking toward us. My heart raced, and I felt a knot of dread form in my stomach. As he approached, he began muttering something under his breath, a string of words that seemed to make no sense, like a chant from another world. I exchanged a nervous glance with my friend, and we both started inching back toward the car. Without a word, the figure reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, weathered object. He held it out toward us, his eyes locked onto ours. It was a worn photograph, a faded image of two people, their faces twisted in agony. The figure's voice grew louder as he repeated the same phrase over and over again. My friend and I were frozen in fear, our minds racing for an escape plan. Suddenly, the figure stopped, his gaze shifting to something behind us. We turned to look, and that's when we saw a second figure emerging from the darkness, identical to the first, down to the tattered clothes and haunting stare. Without a second thought, we bolted for the car, the engine roaring to life as my friend slammed the door shut. The figures continued to mutter and chant, their voices blending into an otherworldly chorus as we sped away from the gas station. To this day, I can't explain who those figures were or what they wanted. All I know is that we stumbled upon something that night, something beyond our understanding, something that chilled us to our core. The vanishing attendant at the abandoned station. This happened a while back during a late-night drive, and it's an experience that still haunts me to this day. It was a rainy night. I was driving alone through a remote stretch of highway, the only source of light coming from my car's headlights slicing through the darkness. My fuel gauge was inching closer to empty, and the glowing neon sign of a gas station ahead was a welcome sight. Pulling into the station, a sense of unease settled over me. The place seemed frozen in time, as if it had been abandoned for years. The flickering lights cast eerie shadows, and the air was heavy with an oppressive silence. I shook off my unease and got out to fill up my tank. As the gas pumped, I glanced around, my senses on high alert. That's when I noticed someone standing by the window of the convenience store. A chill ran down my spine as I realized it was the gas station attendant, his eyes locked onto mine. His face was pale, and he seemed almost translucent, like a ghost from another era. I finished filling up my tank and headed toward the store, my footsteps echoing in the quiet night. The bell above the door jingled softly as I stepped inside, and a musty smell hit me like a wave. The shelves were stocked with dusty products, some of which looked like they hadn't been touched in decades. The attendant stood behind the counter, his gaze never leaving mine. His voice was a whisper as he asked, "Can I help you?" I replied that I was just paying for the gas, trying to mask the unease that was bubbling up inside me. As I handed over the money, he reached out with a cold, trembling hand to take it. That's when I noticed something odd. His fingers seemed to pass right through the bills, as if he were not entirely solid. I blinked in disbelief, my heart pounding in my chest. I stuttered a thank you and practically fled from the store. The chilling encounter etched into my memory. I can't explain what I encountered that night. Was it a ghostly apparition? A glitch in the fabric of reality, or something far more sinister? One thing's for sure, though, that gas station was no ordinary stop, and the vanishing attendant left an indelible mark on my mind.